Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we've got something a little bit different. Today we are going through every single Manchester United player to play so far this season, rating them and deciding who's been the best, who's been the worst, who needs more work, etc. Before that, how are you guys doing? How are we in chat? Are we having a good week? First time we've spoken since the Liverpool game. How do we feel about the Liverpool game? How are we feeling in general? How are we feeling getting closer to the January transfer window? You guys having a good week? All of that good stuff. FP, Edwick, Matt, good to see you guys. Nuruddin, codename, good to see you. How is everybody doing? How did we feel after that Liverpool game? Was a point a good point? I don't think it was a bad point at all. It wasn't exactly the funnest game I've ever seen. Good afternoon, Nuruddin. Hope you're good. Callum, good to see you. Take the point, not a bad point. Yeah, I think it was largely a good point. I think the performance could have been a bit more inspiring, but I feel like we got the job done really, right? We done as much as we could, I think, with the squad which we had available. If you look at the starting 11 from that game, it was pretty terrible. So I think we take it. Best AJ analysis. Go AJ analysis. Best there is, best there was, best there will ever be. AJ analysis. Well, codename, those are very kind words indeed. I'm not sure if I deserve them, but I do greatly appreciate it. It's very, very kind of you. Yeah, basically, what we're going to do today, guys, is go through every Manchester United player who's played a minute so far this season. I'm not sure why Hannibal's in a different kit. I guess it didn't work. I'm also not sure why half the heads are chopped off. But again, yeah. But we're going to be going through all of this and rating who has done well, who should be doing more, etc. But also what I want to do is give you guys control of changing the tier system. So currently it's S, A, B, C, D. You guys have full power to change that and label that however you like. So we could have the best, and that's only one player. We could have, good season so far, bad season so far, etc. You guys are in complete power of changing what each tier is called. So if you guys want to get in chat and let me know your idea, basically, of what we could change that to, feel free to do that. We should hopefully have a full squad in January. If not in January, I'm certainly hoping that by the start of February, everyone who's injured at the moment should be back, fighting off the first sneeze already. I think I'm good. First of all, am I coming through all right as well? I realised I haven't checked that. But yeah, I want to go through every player, decide how we think they've done, and we can look at obviously their tactical fitness side. We can also look at some of the data behind it as well using Data MB. Chad, good to see you, mate. Hope you're well. You do love that bald man emoji, don't you? You do love it. Let me send one. There we go. Have a bald man emoji back. Poor, average, good, great, excellent. Yeah, we can definitely do that. We could also, if you want, you could kind of go for like harsher ones. We can have stinker or, deserves more time or whatever. You guys are completely in control of what you want to do for this. So let me know in the chat. Dreamstars, good to see you, mate. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining the stream. Hope you're having a good day, mate. Good week and all of that good stuff. For those of you that are now joining, we're doing a tier list. We're going through all the United players this season. Just something a little bit different because there's no midweek game this week. So I thought, why not do something a little bit different rather than not streaming at all. So we're going to go through every single player and rate basically how well we think they've done this season. So we're not taking into consideration last year or, 2 years ago or the players in general. Purely this season, how well they're playing. The first time we've had midweek off in a while, yeah, a long, long time since we had this sort of gap between fixtures, which, like I said, is why I thought I'd kind of fill that United-shaped hole with a little bit of extra content and an extra stream. I also want to stream tomorrow as well, going through the whole squad, basically, and deciding which players we need to build around, which play, as in the long term, which players are, good squad options, which players perhaps need to be let go in the summer, which players do you keep for now but let go in 18 months? We could do that in a tier list sort of form as well. If that's something that you guys would be interested in, I plan on doing that tomorrow. And then members, I will hopefully be streaming on Discord on Thursday to members only. And then Friday, a West Ham preview live on here. That's the plan for the streams this week. Of course, normal content as well on the channel with the videos. Does anyone have any different ideas for what we can name these tiers individually? So FP said about going for poor, average, good, great, excellent. I quite like that as a ranking, to be fair. West Ham about to be in big trouble. I hope so. Hopefully we rock up to West Ham and, yeah, destroy them. That'd be great. Alright, I'm going to go with what FP said for now. Edwick saying he agrees with FP. So what was it? Excellent, great, good, average, and poor. Or, yeah, we could have Chad as the top tier. That is also always an option, obviously, right? So basically, yeah, like I said, a slightly different style of stream today, just to fill a bit of a space this week with nothing else to talk about, really. What we can do, though, is when we say have someone like, I don't know, let's say Scott McTominay, and we're a little bit unsure where to rank him, we can go over to Data MB, we can put some different metrics in, which you guys, again, are going to have free choice over. We can look at fouls, passes, whatever you guys can choose, see where they rank compared to other players in the Premier League, and go from there. So that's just something else we've got in line for this stream. Martial having a transfer. Which striker do we have available that would want to come to United? I have Antony perhaps available. Marcus Leonardo. Taremi, that sort of player. Guirassy at Stuttgart. Timo Werner we've been linked with. And who was the other one we've been linked with? We've been linked with another really uninspiring one, and I can't think who it was. I can't remember. There's another striker we've been linked with. Can anyone remember who it was? It's a name which is really uninspiring. Yeah, Guirassy was one of them. Werner's another. And there's another one, but I can't remember who it was. I think it needs to be a lower tier. Shocking. If enough people want that. I don't think I can add an extra tier just because of how I've done this. Yeah, I don't think there's the option for an extra tier, right? Don't think so. Marlon. That's right. Yeah, Marlon's the other striker we've been linked with. Thank you very much. Scott should be between poor and average. He's usually, swear word, but scores the odd goal. Got to give him credit for that, but he kills our midfield in my opinion. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Good afternoon, Mel Reckon. I hope you're good. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good week, mate. How do we feel after a Liverpool game? I want to touch on that before we quickly dive into this. How did you guys feel about Ten Hag's setup? Was it the right approach considering the players we had available? Or is it a sign of how far the standards have slipped, perhaps? That we go to Anfield, and are so happy with a 0-0 draw? Sorry for swearing. Oh, you can swear, mate. It's just I don't want to read it out in case I get demonetized. You can swear. It's literally fine. It's not an issue. How do we feel about this game? Get in chat and let me know. I want to touch on the Liverpool game because I think it is important for context. I think it's a sign of years long poor planning by the higher club structure that this is our most effective form. I think that's a very good point. Yeah, I think that sums it up quite nicely, actually. I was happy after a Liverpool game. In the current state of United, that was the best we could hope for. Obviously, all the injuries make it different as well, right? I've got 24 players on this list. And how many of them were missing the other day? 8, 9 of them. I'd like to see a defensive pivot for the rest of the season. Do you mean a double pivot like what we saw against Liverpool? Or do you mean something slightly different? Good in this situation with this squad, but a little bit toothless. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. If Hojlund and Garnacho having the big chances. AJ, it seems Ten Hag would like to seek a centre-back and a striker. I'm thinking Todibo and maybe Taremi. I looked at a few centre-backs this morning. Wait, was that this morning? Yeah, I think so. I think that's been uploaded. So let me know if you guys have watched that and what you thought. But also, yeah, I will be doing a video tomorrow, if not the day after, looking at strikers which United could sign in January. So rather than looking at the big money £80 million signings, we're going to look at the slightly cheaper ones, which, you know, can actually happen in January. With better pass accuracies from certain players in that system, it's very winnable. Yeah, I think you're right. I think United could have won that game. I do see it as a little bit of a missed opportunity. Thank you very much, Chad. Appreciate that. What colour should we make this one? Oh, I've done it wrong. Hang on. Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a missed opportunity. I feel like Liverpool really were bad, so on another day we could have quite comfortably won that. Do you want to put terrible here? Is that what you said? Nuruddin has gifted another 5 memberships. Nuruddin, thank you so much for gifting the membership, picking up exactly where he left off in the last stream. Thank you so much, Nuruddin. I hope you're well. Enjoyed having a chat with you over the weekend while watching the... What game did we watch together? The Feyenoord game. I enjoyed that. It was good to talk to you. So, yeah, thank you very much for the gifted memberships. Everyone who has just become a member, you now have a goat symbol next to your name to show that you are a goat of the channel. You also have new custom emojis. You can join the Discord and have access to their members-only channel, which has live streams which no one else gets to see. And we look at stuff which we can't look at on YouTube. Not in a weird way, still football stuff. So if you are a member, make sure to say thank you to Nuruddin. And also, spam the love heart, spam the new emojis, the flames. I can't remember what emojis we've got. The hundreds, the caps, the 10 hugs. Make sure to spam it all. Thank you very much for the gifted memberships, as always. Despite playing the odd style of football, Man United ended up with the best clear-cut chances. If he had been more clinical, we could have stolen 3 points. Varane needs to stay fit always and get picked. But you're spot on, I think. Our attack is still in the early stages of its teething process, in my opinion. Garnacho and Hojlund are both not Mbappe-level talents who can beat the world at age 18, but he could be another Rashford type. I think that's a fair assessment. My Wi-Fi just went crazy just now. What did I miss? You missed the legend Nuruddin gifting another 5 memberships to the channel. That's the main thing you missed. I think we should change the highest category from excellent to Kobbie Mainoo, because that's how good he's been. I think that's fair. Ten Hag and the play has done what was needed. Played defensive and tried to score on the counter. That Liverpool team has too much chemistry and quality to open up our rest defence. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment as well. I think you guys are actually pretty spot on with everything you said there. Yeah, I think you guys have actually smashed that. Should we get over to this? And if so, which player do you want to start with? The first player, and where we put that first player, is really going to set the tone. So, careful who you go for. Which player do we want to go for first? After that, I'm going to pick who goes first. But which player do you want to start with? Hi, Manchester United fan. Good to see you. Go in order. In terms of the order I've got currently, this is just literally how the file's loaded in. We could go from back to front with the defence. Or we could go kind of a random scattergun approach just to keep it interesting. Keep some of the forwards for the end, but some at the start, etc. Good video about the centre-backs this morning. Thank you very much. I think Man United needs someone who can compete with Lissandro for his position. Someone like young guy about who you told first. But Tadibo okay too, and I would like to see Simakan. Good shout, Simakan. AJ, could you remind me to take the pizza out of the oven in 10 minutes? Yes, I'll try. Start with Hojlund. Let's use your order. Should I just go for a completely random order? I'll just drag a random player up, and you guys are going to decide where we're going to rate them, whether they've had an excellent season, a great season, a good season, an average season, a poor season, or a terrible season. Take into consideration the Premier League, the Champions League, the Carabao Cup. That was good fun while it lasted. How available people have been. You know, if you've only been available for 2 games, you haven't had an excellent season, right? So take that into consideration. Perhaps the way they've applied themselves in certain games and things like that. I think we should look at all of it. Let's make it random. I agree. Too bad we won't have Amrabat and Mainoo against West Ham. How come? Am I missing something? Simakan, if Man United were playing in a 3-box-3, would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know that much about Simakan, so I'd need to watch him before kind of committing to anything like that. The other thing we are going to do, by the way, with this video, is when we get stuck on players, we're going to use stats. We're going to look at them tactically. We're not just going to go, player, excellent, player, poor, all right? Get the bit part players out of the way first and then come on to the big guys. All right, sounds like a good idea. Let me decide who I'm going to start on. We've got some loans in here as well, the likes of Reguilon. I've only got one keeper, Onana, just because the others haven't played any football this season, so I think it's harsh to say Bayinda has been terrible, for example. Who should we start with? I want to think. Do I go for a controversial one early on? You know what? We'll start with Christian Eriksen. Where do you guys think we should put Christian Eriksen? That's the player we're going to start with. Morning, Ali. I hope you're well, mate. Saying good morning, AJ. And the best community was over the moon for the 0-0 and the setup. The team was crying for Bruno. He could have created more chances. McTominay wasn't creating chances. Yeah, I think McTominay done well in the second half to kind of carry the ball. But the first half in particular, he just couldn't carry the ball particularly well. But thank you very much for the $10 donation. That is super, super generous. Hope you're good, mate. Hope you're having a good start to the week. everyone also, make sure to say thank you to Ali for the donation. Ali, what we're doing today is going through every Manchester United player this season and rating how well they've done, just for something a little bit different on the channel. So far, I'm seeing average, 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 poor. Could you guys also give reasons why? So start with your instant response, average or poor or good or great, whatever, and then give me a bit of a reason why you think. And for anyone who misses this stream or misses parts of it, I will be editing this and uploading it as a video tomorrow morning. Which player are we talking about? We are talking about Christian Eriksen. I wish there was somewhere I could like put him and just hover him somewhere so you could see. But yeah, we're talking about Christian Eriksen. So first of all, what do you think he's done? Excellent, great, good, average, poor, or terrible? And why? Of course, I don't think we can ever say excellent simply because I don't think he's been available for enough games this season. I wouldn't say he's been terrible. I think he's played alright at times. The games he played weren't great performances and he was injured for a longer time, so I would put him in poor. I know Eriksen has glaring shortcomings, but I think he was our only method of ball progression from deep when we played, so I think good. Average, stop-start season, injured. I'd say average, 50-50. Good to see you, DJ Nature, mate. I hope you're well. The only thing I think Eriksen has been effective at has been in kind of improving our tempo, link-up and passing in the middle. Everything else he's been off of the required pace. I think that's fair. Eriksen hasn't played more than a handful of games and only played around 45 minutes when he did. I think personally I would be between average and poor. Because we did see in pretty much every game that he played, he just seemed to decline after the 45th minute. The games where he was coming on, I thought he'd done well at changing our tempo. But I think the games he was starting, he was really dipping. I'm going to do a quick poll, actually. That's what I'm going to do. We're going to go poll. We're going to go Eriksen. Good. Average, poor. I think he's definitely in there somewhere, in that sort of range. Average, he let too many runners go past him too easily. I agree with that. Between average and poor would be perfect. Yeah. I think that's going to be the case with a lot of players, right? We can't necessarily find the exact range for them, which is why, you know, finding the right place for them. Is there any stats anyone wants to look at with Christian Eriksen? Because we can do that if you want. If we go over to Data MB, we can look at any sort of metric you would like. So if we go to the Premier League, pick a metric you would like to look at and we can do it. If there's anything in particular anyone's interested in, we can do that. I think with Eriksen, it's probably not worthwhile just because he's not played that much football. But perhaps we can do that with some other players. Average is winning the poll, so I think that's where I'm going to put him. We're not going to spend long on these polls either. Even if there's not many votes, we will end them quite quickly. So for Christian Eriksen, we are going to put him in the average category. I think he's been alright when he's played, and he's brought a good tempo at times to the side. However, physically, he just can't cope in certain games. Teams run past him too easily. I think back to the Bayern game in the Champions League. It's just too easy to go past him. However, having said that, on the ball, he does bring a technical quality and a tempo control, which most others don't. It's hard to put him in good because he hasn't played that much. It's hard to put him in poor because he hasn't played that much. So I think for Christian Eriksen, we will put him in the average category. The next player that we're going to go on to is... This one might divide opinion. The next player we are going to look at is Diogo Dalot. How do you guys feel about this? How do you guys feel about Diogo Dalot? I feel like this one might divide opinion a little bit, which is why I've gone for him next. I think he's a really odd one to try and gauge, right? No offense, Diogo, mate. But in some games, he looks really good. And then in other games, yeah, feels like Martial, really back and forth. Yeah, I completely agree. Some games, he looks so good. What stats would you guys like to look at? Let's look at his, what I'll do is I'll quickly put it on screen for you. What stats would you guys like to look at to Dalot to try and see roughly where he's rating? Anything you guys are interested in? We could look at goals, slide tackles, we can look at pass completion, we can look at successful dribbles. I believe we can look at crosses per 90, accurate crosses per 90, expected assists, anything like that. Wrong app. Wow, FP, you don't want to at me, that's not very nice. Crosses per 90. Let's look at accurate crosses percentage for Dalot. And what else should we put him with? We'll put him with ball carries. I like the sound of that. Let's see if I can find it somewhere. Let me know if you guys see ball carries. There's a lot of data to go through here. Progressive runs per 90. Does that sound good? Okay, so this is all fullbacks in the Premier League so far this season. We can see, for example, down here, you've got Adam Smith. You want to rank high for accurate crosses, but also progressive runs. So, let's see. You can't see the drop-down options? Oh, did I have it too low? Okay, I'll sort that out on the next one. Sorry. Let's have a look at Dalot. Let's have a look at Diogo. So Dalot's rating in here. So accurate crosses, 37.25%. Progressive runs per 90, 1.28. So, you know, you would want to be towards the top right. We can see he's kind of in the middle of the pack somewhere for those particular metrics in terms of carrying the ball forward, progressive runs, but also accurate crosses. So in terms of those particular metrics, which you guys have asked about, I think average would be fair enough. But does anyone disagree with that? I'm quite happy to go for average personally. He's not too bad, average. Yeah, I'll make sure you can see the drop-down options on the next one. Chad, this is your pizza reminder from 10 minutes ago. Callum, you have saved me. Thank you so much. Chad, go get your pizza, mate. It's actually been 10 minutes already. That has gone quick. You've got adverts coming up, guys. I'm going to skip them for you. And get the chat back up. I think most of us are agreeing average, right? So for Dalot, I think we're going to go for the average category. At times, he seems to play really well. He defends his back post. He puts tackles in. For example, against Liverpool, I thought he had a really good game. We see other games where he just feels like he's an absolute mile off it. Against Galatasaray in the Champions League, he makes mistakes leading to goals. Against Bournemouth, he made poor decisions in the final third. I think there's the potential for Dalot to be a really good player. And I think in the second half of the season, he needs to produce that. He needs to stamp down his authority and decide, basically, that he is going to be Manchester United's #1 right back. If he doesn't do that, he's got the risk of slipping down and actually potentially leaving the club in the future. More on that tomorrow. But I think for this season, I'm very happy to go with Dalot as average. But he needs to do more. And that's not a good start, having two players in average. Let's see if we can get someone who's going to change that a little bit. Let's go for Alejandro Garnacho next. How are we feeling about Garnacho? I'm going to put him in average for now. That's not where we're leaving him. That's just where we're kind of hovering him. Where are we going to put Garnacho? Again, we can look at some numbers. Chad, don't forget your pizza, mate. Your house would have caught fire if it weren't for Callum. Yeah, it's a good job he's on the ball because I'm not. I'm seeing good. I'm seeing average. I'm seeing great. Good to great considering his age. I think that's a good point as well, actually. I think his age is something that we have to take into consideration. What I'm going to do quickly is make a little data graph for us to look at. So if we go back over to it, on this one, we're going to look at, first of all, Premier League. We're going to look at, I'm interested in dribbles for this. And maybe successful attacking actions. Successful dribble percentage or dribbles per 90? I'm going to go for dribbles per 90 for this one. And then let's go for key passes. So now we're looking at the ability to dribble and progress the ball up the pitch, but also to actually create in the final third. They're the two we're going to go for on this one. So, this is forwards in the Premier League. So we've got Doku, for example, is right near the top right for dribbles per 90 and key passes per 90. We've got Sterling here, Mitoma here. Let's take a look at where Garnacho is going to be. It's not bad. Dribbles per 90, 7.63. Key passes per 90, 0.6. I'd like to see an improvement in the key passes per 90. But I'm not mad at that at all. You still can't see the drop downs? Okay, I'll read some of them out to you. For this one, I had a particular idea anyway. How are we feeling here? Expected assists you'd like to see? Okay, I'll change that from key passes to expected assists. Let me see if I can find it somewhere. Where is expected assists? Like I said, Data MB has so many different things that you can look at that it can be quite hard to actually find exactly what you're looking for because there is so much data here. It's great to work with. Let's just let it update for 1 second. So again, it's not drastically changing his... With his key passes being quite low, his expected assists is also fairly low, so it's not changed that much. What's the website? This is Data MB. This is the pro version, which you can pay for, or you can get the free version. Either way, I highly recommend it. It's great. So where are we thinking? Good if we're considering age. Garnacho is good. His all-round game is better. He defends excellently and brave in the attack for his age. He is progressing as expected. I think he's definitely had a better than average season, right? Considering, you know, coming into the season, the first game, for example, we saw him against Wolves and we all sat there and thought, I don't think he's ready to start games on a regular basis. So I think he's kicked on since that. And I think he, therefore, has had a good season. I would now say sometimes he is ready to start. So again, that's progress, and that's the sign of a good season if he's progressed as a player. At the same time, I do think he has a physicality problem. I think he does struggle at times with the strength of some of the players in the league. It can be a little bit easy to brush him off. What I do like, having said that, is his reaction to losing the ball. He does work hard. He does try and get back. I don't think he was expected to be our starting left winger this year. I still think Marcus Rashford would be ahead of him in the pecking order when everyone's in good form. But I think he's having a good season. The other axis is dribbles per 90 still. For the Everton goal, great. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't be that worst idea in the world to give him a boost for that sort of goal. That's true individual brilliance, which is part of a good season. I think we might go for good on this one. Wow, he's not too bad then. Yeah, he's done pretty well in that metric. In terms of ball carries in the world, he ranks quite well in terms of percentile. So I think for Garnacho, we are going to go for good. The Everton bicycle kick definitely bumps him up a little bit. That sort of individual quality is just great to see from such a young player. I also like, though, his work off the ball. That when he loses the ball, he tracks back, he's intense. Could he be a bit more intelligent with his work off the ball? Absolutely. But I think for a player who, at the start of the season, we labelled as someone who isn't ready for the starting 11, for him now to have started the last 3 or 4 games in a row, I think he's having a good season. I think there's a lot of growth and a lot of potential for him to get a lot better in the next 24 months. But I still think so far he's having a good season. So I'm quite happy to have him have there. I'm quite happy to put him there. And, you know, it's nice to finally have a player who we would say is having a good season. The next one I want to go on to is Scott McTominay. What do we think of Scott McTominay? This is one which could divide opinion. What's the site again? Data MB. So the word data, and then the letter M, the letter B, all one word. Scott McTominay is a tricky one. He's a tricky one. It's a really difficult one to work with. I want to head over back to Data MB to look at it. I'm trying to think what metric we could look at for Scott McTominay. Obviously, we have to talk about his shots and his expected goals per 90 and things like that, because that is something he's bringing to the side. But perhaps if we then compare progressive passes with that to try and get a balance of him, that could be a good idea. So let me have a quick look. Let's go for key passes, perhaps. We could go key passes per 90 or passes to the final third. We'll go for passes to the final third, and then we'll go for expected or goal conversion percentage. No, we'll go for expected goals per 90. So this is obviously considering that he is a central midfielder. I believe I've done that all right. Can you guys see all this? Yep, cool. So along the bottom, we've got passes into the final third per 90. And then up the left, we've got XG per 90. Cole Palmer, for example, has the highest expected goals per 90 for any midfielder in the Premier League. Rodri has the most passes into the final third. There's a chance this doesn't even actually class McTominay as a midfielder, purely because of how he's done this season. What we can see is that expected goals per 90, he ranks ridiculously high. You can see him highlighted pink up there. In terms of expected goals, he's been a huge boost to United. He's scoring a lot of goals, and Importantly, not only is he getting into good positions, he's taking his chances. At the same time, though, the fact that for a, quote, midfielder, his passes into the final third ranks so poorly, that would be a concern. It's a really difficult... I think this might arguably be the most difficult one to rate. Because I think, tactically, he has a lot of flaws in the side. But he's scored crucial goals. I know we've got a lot of fans of Erik ten Hag in the chat. If it weren't for McTominay, I'm not sure Erik ten Hag would be in a job still. Truthfully, the goals against Brentford, the goals against Chelsea came at important times this season. And he's got, obviously, goals in other games as well. I'm not sure. I'm not going to put him in poor simply because of his goals. We've also got to consider as well that a McTominay good season is different to a Kevin De Bruyne good season, right? So by his standards, has he had a good season? Probably, right? In his style he plays, he's good, but he's not the style for United. But he's good. Could he be a reverse Joel Linton case where he's been playing in the wrong position his whole career? I think so. Relative to Scotty, he's done well. 99th percentile for non-penalty goals, says FP. I think we've got to put him up there. In good. I think we've got to go for good. I think for Scott McTominay, we are going to have to go for good. Now, this one probably raises a lot of debate, and we've seen that in chat. At times, he does things which are really poor. His passing is sloppy. His general team performance at times is a little bit sloppy. However, in terms of the job which Erik ten Hag is asking him to do, I think he is doing a good job. He's scoring crucial goals. He is crashing into the box and ultimately has won Manchester United a lot of points. And the way that I want to look at this list is he doing good or average or poor or whatever by his standards? By the standards of Scott McTominay, I think he's had a good season. I understand why people may want him lower, and I completely get that argument. I also get why some people might want him higher. He's our top scorer at the club. That's got to rank him quite well. But I think I'm happy to go with him in good. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see a change of tactical role, more involvement in the game. But we'll go with good for now. I think that's just about a fair rating. The next one we're going to go on to is Jonny Evans. What do we make of Jonny Evans so far this season? Good is his best. Yeah, I'm happy for McTominay in good. Again, the goals. I don't think he's playing that well. But as in McTominay this is. But again, you can't look past the goals. You can't. You can't look past the important goals he scored for the side. Again, I think it's almost Ten Hag's fault that he's playing questionably at times. Create a new tier for Evans. I'd be down, honestly. For his age, Evans is decent. I think, right, if you actually think about Jonny Evans coming into the club this season, I think we all thought he was coming in to do his coaching badges and be a coach. And then suddenly he's actually starting at Anfield. I couldn't really tell you a bad performance he's had. I think he's been good, you know. Again, consider by his standards. So, not compared to, who's the best, Saliba, for example, or John Stones, compared to Jonny Evans. I think, again, if we're going by a player's individual standards, I think Jonny Evans is another player which has to be in good. He's not the best centre-back in the world. He never will be. But I don't think we were expecting him to play as much as he has. He done well at Anfield the other day. I thought he was really good. He's shown good experience, good communication in the defence. He's had a brilliant assist against someone like Burnley. I think if you told me at the start of the season Jonny Evans was going to start at Anfield and genuinely play a really good game, I would have to say he's had a good season. Again, remember we're comparing this to the standard of the player. If I'm Messi and I've produced this season, it's different to if I'm Jonny Evans and I've produced this season, right? So base it on the players themselves, their own standard. By Jonny Evans' standard, I think he has had a good season. I would argue with a lot of people. I think he's had a good season, so fair play to him. Someone who hasn't had such a good season is Lisandro Martinez. I don't really know where we can put him. Where do we put him? Because He's injured. He's always injured. He's been injured the whole season. So what we can do, I guess, is either leave him out of the ranking completely, or just judge the few games he did play. Would you guys rather judge the games he did play, or just completely leave him out? Maybe I'll just add an injured tier list. Should we do that? Should we just add an injured tier list? We'll put it in pink. Why not? Pretty in pink. Lovely. Is that pink or purple? I'm not sure. Should we just go for injured or just NA? I think most players who have been injured most of the season should go on average by default. NA. The only thing is we need to make sure we decide what categorizes a player being NA. Because, for example, Mount's missed a lot of football, but I still think he's played enough to be judged. Why is McTominay in good? Because by his standards, he's been good. Need at least 5 games? I'm happy to use that as the thing. If you maybe remind me later on. Johnny Evans, for free, he is good and his experience was needed for sure, but let's not forget Ten Hag wanted Kim Min-jae. Oh, I wish we'd got Kim Min-jae. I wish. Yeah, the reason we got someone like McTominay and Evans in good is because, by their standards, I think they have had a good season. Or do we do it by Premier League standard? What would you guys rather? Would you rather base a player on, has that player had a good season by their own standard, or compared to other Premier League players in that position? What would you guys rather? Again, it's completely up to you guys, this is. Premier League standard, says Biggs. Let me know what you think, guys. Let me know what you think. I'm going to have a quick drink. Premier League standard? I was going to say, if it, like Chad has said there, if this is Premier League standard, we're going to see players dropping quite low. Because we're using stats relative to other Premier League players. I like that logic. Should we say 8 games played, by the way, for the injury thing? That feels like a happy medium. Okay, so if it's by Premier League standard, Scott McTominay's in poor. And Evans, where is he now? Where do we want to put Evans? We'll move Lisandro Martinez, obviously, into NA. Garnacho's had a good season by the standard of Premier League wingers. I agree with that. Where do we suddenly want to put these guys? Evans and McTominay. Because Evans has had a good season, but has he had a good season by Saliba's standards? Or even Maguire at his own club, Diaz, etc.? Let me know what you think. For Evans and McTominay, just say McTominay, say a word where you rank him, and then the same for Evans as well. They could both go into average. I think McTominay in particular is a tricky one because his goals have been... I don't think you can be the top scorer at your football club and have a bad season. Is that too basic a way of looking at it, though? I think Evans will move into average. I think he's had a decent season. If Premier League standard says codename, McSauce can't be in poor. His Brentford goal has been massive. He's scored a lot of important goals. The N/A tier should be called Sancho. Oh yeah, I don't actually think we've got Sancho in this. Guys, vote McTominay. Where do we reckon? I can quickly do a poll if you want. McSauce. Poor. Average. Bang. Have a quick vote on that. Evans is average, McTominay is poor. Average. McTominay average, Evans average, Garnacho good. Sancho gets terrible because he's not actually injured. Sancho's not actually on the list because I just didn't bother including him, I'll be honest. Scott Good, Evans average. The current vote is average, so if you disagree with that, make sure to get involved in the poll, which should now be in chat. 71% of people are saying average at the moment. Let me know if you want to change that. If you want to change it, vote. 72% saying average. 70% saying average. I think that's fair. I think we go for average. Is there anyone else which should go in NA by that logic, by the way? Is there anyone else who hasn't played enough games? I don't think there is there? I think everyone else has probably played enough to be considered, I would say. I'm just looking through them now. Oh yeah, I don't know if I've got Ahmad down here, actually. Sancho's not in the thing. I forgot to include Ahmad. Yeah, Alejandro Martinez is definitely NA. Amrabat, I think Amrabat's definitely played enough. Unless you're just saying his performances are NA. Hannibal, yeah, would be one which is borderline. Maybe if someone could find the stats. See, can someone see for me, please? You don't have to if you don't want to. If Hannibal has played more than 8 games in all competitions this season. If he has, we'll keep him in. And we'll judge him based on that. Okay, so we've had a slight rejig of the poll and decided to now compare these players to the Premier League average and the Premier League standard rather than their own. So Alejandro Martinez is going to go in NA simply because he's been injured the whole season. Scott McTominay is going to come down to average because, again, for the same reasons as earlier. Johnny Evans has also now come down to average rather than good. So we are now comparing this to the Premier League standard rather than the own players, or the individual player standards themselves. So anyway, moving on to the next player, Luke Shaw. Where do we rank Luke Shaw? People saying good straight away. I think on form, he's one of the best fullbacks in the world. I think he's the best left back in the world on form. That's my opinion on Shaw. This season, we haven't seen top form Shaw. Obviously, he missed a patch through injury as well. But I would still say he's had a good season. And last year is NA as well. I think when I made this, most of the NA players, I think I actually didn't include them at all. Luke Shaw is good by Premier League standard. Again, let's not talk about generally how good are they. Let's talk about this season, their performance this season. Hannibal has played 9 matches in all competitions. Well, someone said 6, someone said 8, someone said 9. So I'll have a check in a second. What do we think for Luke Shaw? Most people saying good straight away. Anyone disagree with good for Luke Shaw? Chad saw 8 games for Hannibal. I'll quickly check. If we go to the transfer market website, Hannibal Mendry transfer market. Shaw's been good. Nuruddin agrees, saying Shaw's been good. I think that's fair. Trying to find Hannibal's stats for the season. But my internet is being nice and slow. Sure, you would say that with him and without him were quite obvious. Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, so Hannibal's got 8, but some of them are sub roles and stuff. Okay. So we'll include Hannibal. We'll include him. Because he has hit that criteria of 8. We said less than 8, didn't we? So 9 if you include international. Okay, so yeah, we'll say he's played 8 games for United, so we will judge him. Shaw, I think, is a pretty easy one. I don't think he's had an absolutely incredible season by his own standard, by the Premier League standard. I also don't think he's been poor. I think he had a slightly questionable start to the season, but I think quite clearly the difference that he makes to this team, whether he's fit or not, is just night and day. And I think even this season, when he hasn't been at his best, he's still proven that. Luke Shaw at his best is an excellent season. So far, I would say he's had a good season, considering he's missed games from injury. He's come back and still got back in the team quite nicely. So I would say he's been good. Next up, Facundo Pellistri. Now this one I'm interested by. I am interested by your guys' thoughts on Facundo Pellistri. Bernard saying poor. I'm seeing average. I'm seeing poor. Average. Oh, this one's dividing opinion. Ensachet. I think he's played enough. He must have, right? Average, average, average. So you guys are saying average. Personally, I would be more inclined to put him into poor. Because I think if we actually look at wingers in the Premier League, even if you look at the wingers of, let's say, what's an average team in the Premier League? Let's say West Ham. The standard of their wingers. Kudus, Jared Bowen, Paqueta. If we look at Everton, for example, who are a lower team, we're talking about Dwight McNeil's, Jack Harrison's. That feels a bit more like Facundo Pellistri's level. So I would argue, personally, in my opinion, by Premier League standard, he's been poor. For his own standard, he's probably been average because I don't think he's a great player anyway. But I think he's had a poor season. I think he's had opportunities to come into the side and not really taken them. By Prem standard, he's been poor. He hasn't really contributed anything significant. He only had one good moment. Yeah, so he's featured in 12 games as well. Minutes-wise, he is incredibly low, but... pardon me. For Facundo Pellistri, I'm going to put him in the poor category. It might seem a little bit harsh because he's not actually played that many minutes, but I just feel that when he plays, he doesn't make enough of an impact. And I think for him to be, you know, we're talking about a Premier League here where the standard is ridiculous. The standard of wingers is absolutely crazy. You can go right through the league. Every team has a good winger. I'm not sure there's really any teams in the league at the moment where Facundo Pellistri actually goes and starts on a regular basis. So if I'm using that description, it probably suggests he's having a poor season. So I'm happy to put him in poor. I think that's a reasonable place to leave him. Next up, I want to go on to Casemiro. Did Casemiro make the 8-game criteria? He must have done, right? Where do we think Casemiro ranks? Again, I think I know where I want to put him. Does he qualify? Did he play enough? I think he must have just about, right? Seeing average, I'm seeing poor straight away. By his own standards, poor. I think that's a fair assessment. I'm trying to think, if we're talking about Premier League standard, let's talk about players who play a similar position in the Premier League this season. Declan Rice, Bissouma, Rodri, Caicedo, someone like Baleba at Brighton. Lower down the league, you've got the Onanas at Everton, Edson Alvarez at West Ham, Bournemouth, Lewis Cook. Again, I'm trying to think by Premier League standard. Aston Villa, Douglas Luiz has had a better season than Casemiro has. I think he's had a poor season. Now, I'm not going to say whether or not that's his fault. It might come down to tactics, and this one probably is going to get me a little bit of hate. Paulinho at Fulham. I think he's had a poor season, you know. Do you guys agree with that mostly or not? By Prem standards, I don't think there's that many good singular pivots, so I'd say he's been average. I think that's fair. Edwick saying Casemiro has definitely been poor. Ronaldo saying poor because of the system, not his fault. I think that's fair, but I like that you're also acknowledging that you think he's been poor. That's good. I think I'm going to go for poor. Tactics or not, I think poor. For Casemiro, I'm going to put him in the poor area. Now, this might divide opinion a little bit, but I just don't think, by his own standards, he's been anywhere near the player that we know he can be, but also by Premier League standards. If you go through the Premier League, there are so many good deep midfielders, and Casemiro's start to the season was horrendous. His duel percentage was on the floor, absolutely awful. Pass completion, awful. Ground coverage, awful. High sprints, awful. I don't think Casemiro's had a good season at all. Now, whether you blame him or Ten Hag, you know, tactically, is up to you. But I think for the level of season which Casemiro has had, both by his own standards and the Premier League standard, I think he has had a poor season as a deep midfielder. So I can't put him anywhere else except poor. I just can't. All right, Chad with asking, hey AJ, why did the chicken cross the road? I don't know, mate. Why did the chicken cross the road? We're going to go for Reguilon next. What do you guys make of Reguilon? Should we go Reguilon? Should we go Reguilon? I like the idea of Reguilon. Okay, so for the next one, let's go Reguilon. Let's discuss how we think he's played this season. Let me know what you guys think. Average, average, poor, average. I'm trying to think. The standard of left backs in the Premier League this season. Who's had a good season at left back? Obviously, someone like Luke Shaw. Ali, thank you very much for the donation, the $5, saying, great stream, AJ. Have to go to work early. Unlucky. Early day at work is the last thing you want. Thank you very much for joining in there, mate. Hope you have a good day at work. We'll rewatch the rest of the show later. Hope you'll have a wonderful day. Love this community. You are all legends. Ali, you are the real legend. Thank you very much for the donation as always. Hope you have a good day at work, mate. The stream won't be left up on YouTube, but it will be uploaded as a video tomorrow, so you can catch up there. But thank you very much for the donation as always. I hope you have a good day. Enjoy work. Enjoy work. Depends what you do. You might enjoy it. Have a good day, mate. Reguilon, effort-wise, great. Defensively, poor. Offensively, good. Malacia is way better. Again, we're talking about how he's performed this season, not what his general standard is. Malacia hasn't had a better season because, guess what, he hasn't played. Please, AJ, I really need to know why the chicken crossed the road. Chad, I'm going to ban you. Dan Burn and Livramento have been better. Yeah, I think that's fair. Digne, Moreno, Zinchenko, Tomiyasu. Gvardiol's played left back at times. Ake's played left back at times. Chelsea have had Colwill, Chilwell, Cucurella in that position. I think Colwill, for example, has had a better season. Trying to think of other left backs in the league who might. Udogie obviously has had a much better season, or Udogie. Amrabat technically has played left back. Yeah, you're not wrong. Lindelof has played left back. I find it hard to put him above poor. Yeah, this is not a. Yeah, I've done the wrong video today to brighten the mood, haven't I? How good have we been this season? We've got two players who have had a good season so far. And honestly, I'm looking down. It's not going to get that much better. Dalot's played left back. Yep. So do we reckon poor or average for Reguilon? What do we reckon? Just a quick one word. Poor or average? Average, says Edwick. I'm really unsure on this one. Average, says Ronaldo as well. Average. Okay, you've literally all said average. Okay. For Reguilon, we are going to stick with him in this average category. Simply because I don't think he's done good enough to be good, but I also don't think he's done bad enough to be bad. So Reguilon, not much to say on him. He's been alright as a loan, but I guess that probably sums it up. He's been alright, and that classifies him as average. Next up, we are moving on to Bruno Fernandes. Now, Bruno Fernandes, what do we reckon? I think this might be a good one to go over to Data MB for. And I want to put it to central midfielders. We're going to go to the Premier League. We're going to look at expected assists, if I can find it, per 90. What other thing would you guys like to look at? Smart passes. Accurate through passes per 90. We can look at shots on target, shots per 90, defensive duels won, Successful attacking actions, that could be a decent one. Pass completion. Has Garnacho been good if you take away the overhead kick? He has 1 assist all season. I still think he's been decent. I would put him in good still. What other thing would you guys like to look at with Bruno Fernandes? Passes per 90, forward passes per 90. Forward passes per 90 could be an interesting one, because I think that's something that United struggle with, the ball progression in their midfield. So let's go for that, and let's search for Bruno Fernandes and see where he's going to rank exactly where I thought he would rank realistically. That's actually a really good point from Chad there, by the way. Bruno might be the only one who's been good on the Premier League standard, but actually by his standard still quite poor. That's a good way of putting it. But statistically, he's so frustrating to watch, right? Because his pass completion is always so bad and things like that. But in terms of forward passes per 90, there's not that many midfielders ahead of him. And expected assists per 90, there's only 2 ahead. Sarabia, which is a surprise one, and James Maddison. If we were talking about James Maddison, everyone would sit here and say he's had a great season. So you guys now saying great? Great, one of the best chance creators in the league. Again, let's focus on this season rather than just his general standard. Due to tactics and playing out of position, average. When at number 10, good. That's a good point as well, because he has had some poor games. Has he had a great season or has he had a good season, guys? I want one of those two. It's one of those two. He's not been average. I think he's been much better than average. Compared to the, a poor Bruno Fernandes performance is better than most players in the league still. Good or great? I think good because of the games where he's played out of position and been poor. Pardon me. I think that's fair. For Bruno Fernandes, I think I'm going to put him in good. Now, that might seem like a strange place to put him, but just bear with me on this. Creatively, he is statistically still one of the best in the Premier League. Despite a season where he perhaps hasn't lived up to his usual standards, he's creating more chances than anyone else still. He passes the ball forward more than most do. He's been very good in that way. So that would pull him up to great. I just think, though, the games where he's played right midfield, a deeper midfield position, I don't think he's been good enough in those games to say he's had a great season. So that's probably on Ten Hag a little bit. Ten Hag has maybe restricted Bruno Fernandes. When he's been given freedom, I think he's been brilliant. We saw it against Everton, for example. He was really good, really creative. I think Bruno Fernandes has had a good season, which probably shows how good he is as a player, because he's actually been a little bit lower than his normal level. So for him still to be one of the better playmakers in the league this season, I think that's a credit to him, and I'm happy with him there. He scored important goals as well. The Burnley goal, yeah. By Premier League standards, great, but his own standards, good. Yeah, I think there's always that little bit of a grey area as well between the two. One man to create in the whole team is bad, and this isn't Bruno's fault. Yeah, I think in a better system, he would have had a great season. I just think this year, he's had a good season because he's been in a suboptimal system. Next up, we've got one which I think everyone will like. Kobbie Mainoo. Where are we putting him? I've just happened to put him in excellent there. There's definitely no reason behind that. Where are we putting Kobbie Mainoo? What do we reckon? How good has his season been this year so far? Obviously, we do have to consider that he's not actually played that many games. Does he even? He might even fit our criteria for being in the N/A section. He may not even qualify for our normal criteria, but we will make an exception. He's been good. He's been great. Has he been excellent? This is where it's difficult to talk about it, because it's difficult because what was I going to say there? I had a plan there of something that I was going to say and I've just completely lost it. This is where it's difficult. By his own standards, he's been excellent because he's this young talent coming out of nowhere doing brilliantly. But if we're talking about an excellent season by the Premier League standard, has he been as good as Declan Rice and Rodri? No, he hasn't, because he hasn't played the volume of games. So I think great. Best midfielder in the league, scratch that, best in the world. Bellingham can come fight me. Or they can play next to each other for England. Video on that soonish. I think great. I think he's had a great season so far. This one is dividing opinion again. I think we go for great though. I don't know, guys. Kobbie Mainoo for me is a difficult one. By his standards, what we were expecting as a young player coming into the side, he's been absolutely excellent. He's done it at Goodison Park, at Anfield. He's done it in some real hostile environments. He's done it at Newcastle as well. But has he played enough games to really have had an excellent season? Not really. He just simply hasn't played the volume of football matches we need to rank him that highly. However, taking age and everything into consideration, you know, other 18-year-old midfielders in the Premier League, I'm going to go for great. I still think he's had a great season. I think he could go on to have an excellent season. I love him as a player. For now, we're going to put him in great. One thing I love about Kobbie Mainoo is he gives me views. He brings views because everyone loves watching videos on Kobbie Mainoo. I think great. Who would be excellent other than Mainoo? In terms of the Man United squad, Harry Maguire probably. That's probably it really. I think by the end of the season, we'll probably revisit this. And we'll probably then say he's had an excellent season and being one of United's best players, providing he stays fit and gets used. But I just don't think he's played enough to put him any higher than that. I don't know who to go for next. Maybe Antony? Antony? If we're going by Prem standards, should Bruno be a tier below Kobbie? I think what we'll do is we'll go through this all and then we'll rejig it at the end. I think that's what we'll do. So we'll come back to it at the end and rejig. Again, those of you that are just joining, we're ranking United players so far this season. So not in general how good they are, but how good they've been when they've played this season. This is a mixture of my opinion, but largely voted by everyone in chat. Everyone's given their thoughts. So if you are just joining the stream, give your thoughts as well. If I can find him. We are now going to move on to Antony. Has he had an excellent season? No. Has he had a terrible season? No. He ranks somewhere in between. Whereabouts do we think? Average and poor are the first two that I've seen. Poor. Average. I will say I think he's had a good few games over the past couple of weeks. I think he's improved in recent weeks. I think with Scott McTominay kind of bombing past him. I think he had a poor start to the season. I think he's had a good last few games. Obviously missed a patch as well. But the poor start, the good recent, puts him in average, right? Does that make sense? Do you think Mainoo being a fan favourite, Amrabat will leave at the end of the season? It's definitely possible. I think this comment in chat sums it up quite nicely. Started the season poorly, but he's turned it around. So I'd put him in average. And I think I'm happy for Antony to be there. 6 weeks ago, I would have had him as having a poor season. Simply not good enough. In the last few weeks, I think he's been quite good. Of course, still not creating the chances we need, but I don't think he's been that bad in recent weeks. So I think Antony will go for average. But again, a bit like Dalot, we were saying at the start of the list, he's a player who really has to up it in the second half of the season. We have to see improved levels and then sustain those levels. At the moment, we're not seeing enough of it. But I think we can have him there. Let's see carries and dribbles. You want to see some stats on him? Okay. Let's go over to Data MB. Let's go to forwards. Let's go to the Premier League. Let's go for successful dribble percentage or dribbles per 90. I'm going to say dribbles per 90 because that's more about intent. And I'm going to go for expected assists just to see if he's actually creating for us in the final third. Can I find expected assists on here? Again, data MB is so good. There is so much data to look at. Expected assists per 90. Are you guys seeing this? Yep, beautiful. So along the bottom, we've got dribbles per 90. Along the top, we've got expected assists per 90. So, Antony. Here. Dribbles per 90, 5. Expected assists per 90, 0.2. Alex, mate, good to see you. Hope you're well. No worries for joining late. This stream will be edited and put up as a video tomorrow. So by contrast, we've got Doku right up here. We've got Leon Bailey here. Sterling having a very good season. Mitoma, by the way, who is seen as, you know, one of the exciting wingers which everyone wants. 7.7 dribbles, 0.2 expected assists. So he's got a couple more dribbles per 90, but creative-wise, he's on the levels of Mitoma, Kulusevski, who is seen as one of the better creative wingers in the league. Anthony Gordon, who's having a good season. Morgan Gibbs-White. Decore. Doku is obviously just ridiculous. Like, 13.87 dribbles per 90 is a joke. But I find it interesting that just on this particular metric, that, you know, he is getting numbers similar to some decent players, and players which have actually been suggested. Bernardo Silva, even. So that's interesting. I'm happy to keep him in average. I don't think he's done any more than that. And of course, his whole performance is much more than just these two metrics. Just something interesting to look at, though. Back to the tier list. Who are we going for next? Alex, if you haven't seen, by the way, we are just going through every United player so far this season, ranking how good a season they have had by the Premier League standard. That's what we're doing. Who do we go for next? Next up, Rasmus Hojlund. Manchester United's big money signing in the summer. How good has his season been? What do you think? It's not been excellent, let's be honest with ourselves here. It's not been great. Has it been good? Has it been average? Has it been poor? Has it been terrible? What do you reckon? This is a difficult one. I'll leave him an average now. That's not where I'm putting him. I'm just leaving him there. Somewhere between good and average. Somewhere between good and great. Average, but not his fault. Good or average. Above good. He does do the graveyard shift. The only problem I have, right, and I don't want to kick Rasmus while he's down. The problem I have is he's got 0 goals in the Premier League. You guys obviously know me. I'm a big Rasmus Hojlund fan. I think he's a great player. Has he had a good season? Has a striker had a good season if they haven't scored halfway through the season? How many assists he gets per 90? Next to nothing, really. We'll look at some stats for him, because he deserves that. So for this, obviously, we're going to forwards. Strikers now, sorry. We're going to go to the Premier League once again. What do we go for here? What we'll start with is maybe expected goals, something like that. Because that will show actually what he's expected to score. Yeah, so people say he hasn't had any goals because he's not getting the service, which is true. But he has had enough service to score by now. So this is his XG per 90. Can I just find his goals? His goal is going to be 0 in the Prem is the problem. So we'll look at something else. Let's look at his XG and his shots per 90. So along the bottom, we've got his expected goals per 90 minutes. And up the top there, we've got shots per 90 minutes. I'm interested to see who's top right here. Callum Wilson. And then Haaland. No surprise there. But if we go for Rasmus, I'm going to spell this right, Hojlund. Do I need to type his full name or not? He's down here. So XG per 90 minutes, 0.3. Compare that to Haaland, 0.91. So obviously the XG isn't his fault. So the bottom axis is expected goals per 90. up top is shots per 90. We can see, right? Obviously, I've made the argument that he hasn't scored any goals. It's difficult to score goals when you're down here. You know, you're not going to score that many when you're here. Let me just skip the ads for you guys, which are coming up. And get the chat back up. Where is Darwin Núñez on that scale? Okay, so remember Hojlund was 0.32 XG. If we go to Núñez, Darwin Núñez, shots per 90, up here. 0.5. So he's having a lot more shots per 90, Darwin Núñez is. We can change the numbers we look at. What did you want to look at, FP, sorry? Shots per 90 and goal conversion percentage. And again, we're going to go for Rasmus Hojlund. Again, it's a really difficult one to decide. My mouse isn't working properly, so I can't actually highlight the people. So shots per 90, right down here. Obviously, goal conversion is 0%. Fewest passes received of any striker in the league. Yeah. The problem is, I don't think I can sit here and say he's had a good season when he hasn't scored in the Premier League. I don't think I can put him as high as good. Obviously, in the future, I think he's a great player. I love him a lot. I'm trying to think if there's anything different that we could look at. So that's his XG per 90 compared to goal conversion. You're not going to have a shot on target if people are only passing to you to get out of the press. Best way to describe Hojlund is promising. Yeah, I agree with that. How would we rank him for this season, though? I would borderline argue, does he need to go down to poor? Sorry for hitting the mic. We will cover Martial shortly. Average or poor, guys? I don't think we can put him in good when he hasn't scored a goal in the Premier League, despite the number of minutes he started. We've seen strikers in the league this season not get many touches, but they have at least scored goals. Poor or average? Pardon me, I do apologise. It's a difficult one. He's top scorer in the Champions League at the same time. So maybe he gets himself in average because the Champions League form has kind of picked him up a little bit. I don't know how to cover this one. Rasmus Hojlund for me is probably the most difficult player on the list. In the Champions League, he's been good, if not great. He's scoring goals. In the Premier League, he cost all that money and is yet to find the back of the net. We can blame service. He hasn't had that many chances. But he has had enough chances to have scored one by now for the money that he cost. So I can't say that he's had a good season when he's on 0. I also don't think you can say the Champions League top scorer has had a poor season. So I think for Rasmus, we're going to put him in average. Obviously, I'm not criticising him. You guys know how much I love Rasmus Hojlund. I think he'll be great. I think average is a fair place to put him. Do you guys overall agree with that? Jackson scores about 7 goals and still having an average season. Oh, Jackson's one of the best strikers in the league, by the way. People just don't realise it. Cheers, please judge Martial fairly based on what he has done with his minutes this season. Not a biased opinion. He plays in and receives the same service as Hojlund. How many goals has Martial got this year in the Premier League? That's not a rhetorical question. I genuinely don't know the answer. Anyone know how many goals Martial has in the Premier League this season? 1. See, obviously he's not exactly doing great either, which suggests it's a problem tactically. Okay, we will do it like that then. We're going to move on to Martial next, just because I think it's quite a nice comparison to look at the two strikers. And obviously, statistically, even Martial has only scored one Premier League goal, which might highlight a problem in the system. Has Martial, though, had a better season than Rasmus Hojlund when he has played? Has he had a worse season? Let me know what you think. Because by this logic, right, they've both had similar service. Hojlund has played a lot more minutes, but not scored, than Martial has. Obviously, I know the Champions League Rasmus has been scoring, but it is interesting. It's also not looking good, by the way. How many players we've got up here compared to average or lower. Martial's a more senior player, so you would expect him to score more. Hojlund at least has Champions League goals and he works harder. Martial can't be any higher than average. The expectations of Martial are different to Hojlund, I agree. Does that mean Garnacho with a couple of goals is also average? No, because I think if we start comparing strikers to wingers and on goal output, it's a weird comparison to make, personally. Plus, also, if we're talking Martial to Garnacho, like I said already, it's the wrong comparison because they're completely different positions. But if you look at work rate, Hojlund makes up the 1 goal deficit by actually doing something off the ball. Martial has barely played. Only Pellistri in the forward line has played fewer minutes. You can't put Martial, Dalot, Evans and McSauce together. McTominay arguably has a debate for going a little bit higher. How you put some players in average and Casemiro in poor is baffling. It's called a group discussion is what it's called. You can use the word baffling if you want. He always scores against Everton, but outside of that, he hasn't contributed as much to the build-up, etc. as Rasmus. Afternoon, David. Hope you're good. Yeah, I think McSauce might need to come up. I think he might need to come up. I think Martial's in poor. Because I think if Hojlund's been average, I think Martial's had a worse season. I think Martial has to go here. I said I think McTominay could come up. We'll visit that at the end. I think we're going to put Martial here. I think. For Martial, we're going to put him in poor. Now, this one in the live chat has caused a lot of discussion. It's led to differing views, really. The final thought we'll come to is Martial and Hojlund. Martial has scored 1 more goal in the Premier League, but Rasmus Hojlund just puts in so much more effort. He presses much better. He holds the ball up. He kind of battles and things. He sprints. He covers the pitch a lot better. I think Martial also, the expectation with him is higher because he's a much more senior player. I think Martial has had a poor season. I think he will also see it himself as a player who's been fit all year. To have played as fewer games as he has, he will look back so far and say he's had a poor season. Again, these aren't just my views. These are the views of everyone in chat. We're all having a say on this. So don't just attack me, but also don't attack my chat either. Can you look at average distances run per 90? I'm not sure if I can for this. I'm not sure if I can. I'll have a quick look, but I'm not sure. I don't think there are like physical stats like that. Let me have a look, though. Let me have a quick look. Okay, we do have a bit of data. I've managed to find a bit of data for this. So, what I've got along the bottom is successful defensive actions per 90, and defensive duels per 90. So up the side, we've got how many times the strikers are actually trying to compete in a duel defensively, and then we've got how many are successful per 90 down here. Okay. Now I don't know what these stats are going to say. This might actually counter everything I've just said. Let's find out. What we do have here is Martial here. Defensive duels per 90, 1.4. Defensive actions per 90, 2.27. Now, obviously, a duel compared to an action is different. An action could be an interception, etc. We can see, though, that Martial defensively is performing quite poorly. He's not doing that much. I'm interested to see where Hojlund's going to rank on this. Not that much higher. Not that much higher at all, really. So double the amount of defensive duels per 90, but actually successful actions is pretty similar still. So that's actually quite interesting. Also, I feel like if Rasmus played more with Bruno at 10, he would score more. Right now, his strike partner is McTominay, who isn't great at link-up. I think that's a fair point. Antony, in average, boy is 100 million. Has he even scored this season? Lol. No offense. I think if you rank players based on their fee, then you're going to have such a weird list. Because, you know, Pellistri's so much better than Antony just because he costs less. It's a difficult comparison to make. So I don't think fee needs to come into it. Because again, if you were to bring fee into it, Martial would be above Hojlund. Because Hojlund costs that much more. So I don't think you can put fee into it. Again, though, we will come back to this at the end. And you guys will be able to pick one player, maybe two, which we're going to move. Okay? Next up, we've got an interesting one. We've got ourselves Andre Onana. In the Champions League, excellent. In the Premier League, terrible. Sorry, I said it the wrong way around, didn't I? In the Champions League, terrible. In the Premier League, excellent at times, but also a couple of errors. Where do we put Onana? What do you guys think? I said that the wrong way around. Not excellent in the Champions League, terrible in the Champions League. Where do we put him? I'm seeing average, I'm seeing great, I'm seeing good. Balances itself out. Does it balance itself to average then, do you reckon? Good because of his Champions League blunders. I don't know if I can look at goalkeeper stats on this software. Let me go have a look. I'll be back. Okay, I've managed to find some stats for us to work with here. So what we're going to do is head over back to Data MB. So what we've got up the left-hand side is the save rate percentage. So the percentage of shots he saves. Now, of course, that doesn't take into consideration the quality of shot. Just what percentage of shots you save. So if your team faces 10 shots, you save 8 of them, 80% save success. However, what we've got down here is prevented goals per 90. Now, this is a bit more reflective of the quality of chance you're facing. It's the XG of the chances. What are you preventing? Alisson, of course, is right where we'd expect him, right up here. Corey, mate, good to see you. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good start to the week, mate. Anything you've missed today in stream, don't worry. This will be clipped up and put in a video tomorrow. But I hope you're good, Corey, mate. Hope you're having a good day. Let's have a look at Onana. I mean, in the Premier League, it's not bad, is it? You can't really complain at that from Onana in the Premier League. At the same time, he does have these weird howlers, both in the Champions League and also in the Premier League. These random ones where he should do better. Look at the Champions League. I don't know if I can with this. No, I can't on here, unfortunately. Who's down the bottom here? Ah, poor guy. Edison's down here, by the way, for context. David Raya's here. Okay, so where do we reckon we put Onana then? This is a difficult one. Are we considering Champions League or Premier League? We're trying to consider this season based on the Premier League standard. Is he in average, right? Just hear me out on this logic real quick. Is he in average? Because I would say Champions League, terrible. Premier League, great. So if we go up 2 from terrible, down 2 from great, it puts him in average. Or is it just about in good? He can't have had a good season, though, when he literally chucked us out of a competition. That's unfair because we're not using him the way we should. Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I think your point is completely fair. Yeah, I think you're right. This is a difficult one. He cost us around a 16th place. He can't be above average. Average or poor based on the eye test. Definitely we will do this again at the end of the season. I think I'm going to put him in average because statistically he ranks so well in the Premier League. But he did throw us out of a competition. And he himself has admitted he hasn't been happy with this season. If he'd had a good season, he would say he's happy. He's said he's unhappy. So that's what we're going to go for. Onana in average. Now again, this one has divided opinion massively in chat. Premier League, I think like I said already, great. Champions League, terrible. Which probably evens him out somewhere at average. I think also, like I just said, the fact that he himself has said he is unhappy probably says we can't put him any higher than average. Because he wouldn't be unhappy with a good season. So I think we're going to put him in average. That one probably divides opinion the most, though. You know, him, McTominay, Hojlund, those are really the talking points. I think average is just about fair for Onana. Next up, I want to look at Victor Lindelof. What are your guys' thoughts? I was looking forward to Lindelof being kind of a 3rd or 4th choice centre-back this season. But I think when he's played, he's just been terrible, right? I think he's been poor or terrible, personally. I do wonder if Antony needs to come down, by the way. Does Antony need to come down? We'll come back to that. Let me quickly head over to Data MB, see if we can find some stuff on who we're looking at. Victor Lindelof. So we want to go to centre-backs. We want to go to the Premier League. We want to look at aerial duels won percentage. Someone just said get in the bin. I hope you don't mean me. And is there a tackle percentage I can see? Trying to see if there's a tackle percentage. I'm not sure if there is. If there is, I think I've missed it. Defensive duel percentage. Is that fair? Let's go for this. Who's up the top? Raphael Varane, by the way. We'll come back to Varane shortly, but that's interesting. Lindelof. Aerial duel percentage, 50%. 50%. Not really good enough. That's not good enough in my opinion. I want to see if I can find forward passes as well. Because I think he's been poor in possession as well, which has disappointed me. Again, not ranking that well. Bang average. I think he's been terrible. Poor, not terrible. One word in chat, poor or terrible, and then whichever one I see more, we'll go with that. Personally, I think terrible. I think he's been so bad. Terrible's the first word I'm seeing a lot of. I'm seeing a lot of poor now coming back as well, though. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Poor? Okay, poor is 1 from what I've seen in chat. Yeah, poor's edged it. Lindelof, for me, has been one of the most disappointing players for Manchester United this season. I think he was someone in pre-season I was talking about being a good squad option, someone who can come in and do a job. But we've taken a look at the numbers. In possession, not good enough with his forward passing. We've looked at the numbers out of possession. He doesn't win his ground duels. He doesn't win his aerial duels. He has to go in the poor category. I don't think he's been anywhere near good enough. He's one of the few centre-backs you've ever watched who doesn't like physical contact. There's a debate for terrible, in my opinion, but we're going to put him in poor for now. Next up, we're going to go for Sofyan Amrabat. Sofyan Amrabat is the next player that I want to discuss. What do you guys reckon? What do you guys reckon for Amrabat? Poor to average, average. This is probably the story of United's season, right? The fact that so many players are in average. Are we being a little bit generous? Because have we been average or have we been poor this season? Maybe that suggests something that might be on Ten Hag. We can have a reshuffle of some of these players. Maybe we'll do more than 1 or 2 reshuffles. Average is kind of overestimating him. Has he had a better season than Casemiro? Has he had a better season than Casemiro? What do you guys think? Sorry that I went quiet there. I'm just reading through your guys' comments. By Premier League standard, United have been average, not poor, so I guess that makes sense. Yeah, we are in the top half, so I guess we have been average. Casemiro scored goals. Better than Casemiro's season. Casemiro hasn't played much, really. He's had a better season because he's more available. I think that is a fair point, a fair way of looking at a player as well. We're 6th, so we've had an average season. Yeah, I think that's fair. Casemiro hasn't played enough for that comparison. United have been terrible in the Champions League and average in the Premier League. I think what this is also pointing to as well is that a lot of the problem is tactical. I think a lot of the problem is tactical. Tomorrow, by the way, for you guys that didn't hear it earlier, we're doing another stream. We're going to go through the squad again, and we're going to look at players which we should build a team around, players which are good squad options, people which should be sold in the summer, people which should be sold in 18 to 24 months' time. We should also rate Ten Hag. I was tempted to put him on here, but I haven't. But maybe we could talk about Ten Hag another day. The fact that we're hype/happy for Casemiro's return, Amrabat's been poor. It's a fair logic. Although I'm not particularly excited for Casemiro's return. Think we need a separate stream for Ten Hag? Probably. Has Amrabat... I think I'm going to put Amrabat in poor. But I don't think it's his fault. A bit like Casemiro. I think that's what I might do. What do you guys think of that? That's my thinking. You guys think that's fair? I think that's quite a reasonable way of doing it, personally. I think the only fair way to assess Amrabat is to compare him to Casemiro this season. And Casemiro, in my opinion, has been poor. Do I think Amrabat has been that much better? Probably not. He does cover ground a little bit better, and his passing is a bit safer. He does keep the ball better, so he's probably somewhere between average and poor. I'm going to put him into poor Because, again, I think the standard of holding midfielder in the Premier League is so high. Compared to that, Amrabat has been lower and has been poorer. I don't necessarily think it's his fault. I think Ten Hag, I think the fact that both of our holding midfielders, who are both good players, are both ranking having poor seasons, probably points to the manager. But we're going to put Amrabat in poor. Next up, Marcus Rashford. It might get crazy on this one. This one, terrible, poor. 1 out of 10. Terrible. Rashford surely poor, if not terrible. Okay. Now, I'm a fan of Rashford, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there's any stats which at least back him slightly. Now, is this going to class him as a forward or a striker? We'll go for forwards. What I want to look at, what do we class Rashford as? A winger. So, an inside forward, actually. So, we want him to have shots on top, or shots per 90, we want to see, and chances created, right? Or would you rather look at dribbling? We'll go dribbles and shots. I think that sums up what we want from Rashford. Obviously, the defensive side of his game, absolutely horrendous. I completely agree. I'm just trying to see if there is anything really to back him up here. If there isn't, he's going in terrible. So, let's have a look. Marcus Rashford. So he's ranking fairly well in that metric. He is ranking fairly well here. Have I actually got this up on screen for you guys? Yeah, cool. So along the bottom, we've got shots per 90 minutes. He's in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's in the top 8 for shots per 90 from the wing. In terms of dribbles per 90, he's in the top 10. Who's up here? Doku again. What a surprise. Who's here? Garnacho for shots per 90. He's ranking quite highly. Mitoma, Koleosho, Kudus, Zaniolo. I think Rashford is a little bit a victim of his own success last season in possession. But I do think, I agree with all of you guys, off the ball, nowhere near good enough. It's between poor and terrible for me. I think I would go poor personally. Personally, I'd go poor rather than terrible. Because I do think he has still been our most dangerous player this season. He's not actually scoring the goals, I understand that. You can see I'm unsure. I think he's still our most dangerous. Put him with Sancho, he is an utter disgrace. That's why some stats just don't tell the full story. Absolutely. That's why I always judge players on performance first, and then I find stats to supplement it. It's all about intent, that's fair enough. Poor by Premier League standards. I understand what you mean, it's all about intent. That is a really good point. 1 open play goal. Poor defensive work rate. Terrible. Terrible. I'm going to go terrible. Am I? Yeah, for Marcus Rashford, I am going to put him in the terrible bracket, I think. He's between poor and terrible. More than anything for me, because of his body language and things like that. I still think he is actually Manchester United's most threatening player, most dangerous player. Even this season, I think he's more dangerous than Garnacho, who we're saying has had a good season. But when we talk about Rashford by his own standard, the expectation, but also the Premier League standard, he hasn't had a good enough season. He still dribbles quite well and does get into dangerous areas, but his body language, the lack of goal output, his defensive work rate, I think sees him in terrible. I think I personally would just about go into poor, but the majority of people in chat have said terrible, and it is hard to argue with it. So Marcus Rashford needs to pluck his ideas up. Next up, Hannibal Mejbri. Has he even played enough to be in this? Has Hannibal played enough minutes? Did we check that? I can't remember. NA for Hannibal, I think is fair. Probably not played enough. Rashford has had a lot to deal with off the pitch, and it shows his body language. Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't know what's going on off the pitch, but I wouldn't be surprised. He's played 8 matches, but most of it was poor to average. It doesn't feel like he's been given the same opportunities as someone like Facundo, for example. I think I might put him in NA. I think NA for Rashford. So should we go? Who should we go for next? Should we go Mason Mount? We'll go for Mason Mount next. What do we reckon here? You think NA again? Do we know how much minutes he's had? If/when we lose Rashford, people will miss him. Yeah, I think so. I think people will realise how good Rashford is when he leaves, or if he was to leave. At the same time, we can't argue the fact that he has not done enough. 400 minutes in the Premier League for Mason Mount. How many minutes total, or how many games total, sorry. Mount got dropped before he got injured. He got dropped, weirdly, with Mount. I thought he actually had an okay start to the season, then got injured, then returned and actually improved, then got dropped. Obviously, he's had a very short career so far at United, but I feel like his best spell was followed by being dropped, followed by injury. It's a bit weird. NA or rate him? What do you guys reckon? Again, it's up to you guys. I'm unsure. I do agree that it's a little bit difficult to rate him, but if we've rated like Facundo Pellistri, for example, we should rate Mount as well. Yeah, Facundo could come down to N/A potentially. I said we'll come back to ones we're going to change. NA. We'll put him in NA just for not playing enough. I guess actually with Mount, what it is the fact he's a new signing, the amount he's played. It's not like someone who's not played much but has been at the club for a while. This is someone new to the club, so naturally has that adjustment period. We'll put him in NA for now, but again, we might change that towards the end. So we have skipped 2 players. Both Hannibal and Mason Mount have gone into NA just due to lack of minutes, but also Mason Mount adjustment period and then getting injured. So we're going to move on to Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who is another one who, to be fair, hasn't had an awful lot of minutes this season. What do we reckon? What do we reckon for Aaron Wan-Bissaka? I'd be interested to know his minutes again. We'll leave Maguire to the end, by the way, just because I love Harry Maguire. Average for Wan-Bissaka. He's had a few attacking contributions in the final third. Just finished watching the centre-back video. It's really interesting. Thank you very much, Josh. Hope you enjoyed it. I've got a similar one coming tomorrow or the day after on strikers. Maguire has to be an excellent. Oh, he will. Who's had the better season, do you reckon? Dalot or Wan-Bissaka? That's a good way of comparing it. Our 2 right-backs to each other. I may not upload this as a video thinking about it. I might just leave this as a stream and do something else tomorrow. I think I might leave this up as a stream. Dalot has higher highs, lower lows. Dalot, because Wan-Bissaka's been injured and not available. You all overrate Maguire, decent player in a poor team. I disagree. I think he's a great player in a poor team. Maguire is excellent by his own standards. Yeah, definitely. Wan-Bissaka, is he average or is he poor? He's not had a good season because he's not played enough to be good as such. Dallas had the better season, but Ten Hag can do a better job at selecting which games he should start. I think for Wan-Bissaka, we're going to put him in average, just because he's had a bit of a steady Eddie season. He hasn't really had the highs of brilliant defensive performances, excellent creative output in the final third. He hasn't really had the lows of, you know, horrible decisions on the ball or mistakes leading to goals or being beaten defensively. He's also not played that many minutes. So I think average is fair for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, which brings us on to Raphael Varane and Harry Maguire. Where do we rate these two? The last two, the two centre-backs, where do we rate the pair of them? Let me know what you guys think. Where do we reckon? I have done way too much talking today. Because the Varane one, right? Has Varane had a great season if the manager hasn't selected him? Like, would he look... If you ask Raphael Varane right now, how's your season been? Would he look at you and go, great? Not sure. I'd be tempted to say good, perhaps, for Varane. I think I would say Varane good, Maguire excellent. Varane has had errors, obviously. Copenhagen, was it, in the Champions League? Pardon me, I do apologise. Varane average, actually, but Maguire is excellent. Maguire excellent, I agree with that. Varane good, Maguire excellent. Varane average, Maguire good. Somewhere between good and average for Varane. Varane good, Maguire good, in brackets for his standard. Varane would definitely start if Lisandro Martinez wasn't injured. Fair point, something to look at perhaps as Lisandro Martinez returns to the squad, whenever that happens. Again, can you have had a good season if you get dropped for Johnny Evans? By the way, I love Varane. I think he should play more. I think he's got flaws on the ball, but I think they can be masked by a better side. Maguire is only excellent in comparison to our team. By Premier League standards, he's been good this season. I disagree. I think Maguire has been excellent this season. I think if you put him in Manchester City's side right now, I think his form is better than Ruben Dias's. I genuinely believe that. I'm not saying he's a better centre-back, but I think actual form-wise, I would have Maguire has had a better season, in my opinion. Isn't it funny how they make out Varane to be past it, but Maguire to be good for our future when they're the same age? Does anyone think Maguire's good for the future as such, really? It's because Diaz has been putting stinkers. Maguire genuinely has been very good and got better every game. I agree. I think Maguire... I've always thought he's underrated. I think particularly this season he's had a good season. I think he's had an excellent season. I think he has. Again, if we're talking about expectation as well, I think he's had an excellent season. I think Varane's had a good season. Could have had a great season, for example, if he had been played by the manager, but he just hasn't. We definitely have to be looking at younger centre-backs. I completely agree. We can't say Maguire has had as good a level of season as Kobbie Mainoo. Maguire's had a better season. He has. Let's see some Maguire stats. What would you like to see? Centre-backs, I don't like at looking at stats so much unless there's one particular area you really want to focus on. Evans has been good, better than we all expected. Yeah, we had Evans as good by expectation, but actually compared to Premier League level, average. But good to see you, mate. Hope you're well. Tackles per 90. The problem with tackles per 90 is it's affected by the amount of possession you have. So for a centre-back, it's not a great stat to look at. FP, some people just leave them to their own little world, mate. maybe I'll see if I can find some percentages. Let me see if I can find some percentages. So we're going to go centre-backs. We're going to go Premier League. I want aerial duels 1 per 90. And let's go for forward passes per 90 to get a blend. Everyone okay with that? Forward passes per 90 and aerial duels 1. The problem is if Maguire makes one mistake, his confidence is going to be killed. Yeah, that's obviously the concern. I was happy that goal the other week was ruled out after he had kind of made the error. I was a little bit worried about that. Obviously now being injured as well, that's it's a hit for him in good momentum. We're just going to have to see how he comes back from that. If it wasn't for Mainoo, Harry would have his yearly own goal versus Everton. Is everyone happy to look at these two? No one really replied to this. I'm just going to go for it then. No idea where he's going to rank here. In the middle. In the middle. So that's aerial duel 1%. I'm surprised that that's that low. My mouse isn't working, so I can't properly highlight that. I'm surprised his aerial duel percentage is as low as that. Interesting. The forward passes per 90 is affected by the fact that United play in an interesting possession team. By interesting, I mean bad. I'm surprised at this being so low, though. I do agree. That has caught me a little bit by surprise. The aerial duels 1 being as low as it is. So where are we putting the pair of them? I don't think so. He made some mistakes, but hasn't focused on it and moved on. That's why we say he is improving every game. I think Maguire's determination and relentlessness is one of the most impressive things, the resilience. Should we bring Maguire down to great rather than excellent? Should we do that? Yeah. So what we're going to go for is a Raphael Varane in good, simply because when he's played well, but just hasn't played enough. And I think when you have the whatever's going on behind the scenes with the manager, you don't start the Manchester derby, there's so many games you don't play, I think it's hard to say he had a great season. We're going to go for Harry Maguire in great. I think that is a fair place to put Harry Maguire after everything he went through last season. I think he's had a great season this year. And that is how we're ranking the Manchester United squad. And this is probably summed up perfectly by the fact that one of our good players in Luke Shaw has missed, a lot of the season. Bruno Fernandes, one of our good players, has been played out of position. Kobbie Mainoo's been injured for most of the season. Varane hasn't been playing, and most of our players are average. That probably sums up how Manchester United have been this season. I think we've actually, by making this, I think we've created a list which actually reflects the team quite nicely. I think we've actually summed up a lot of our problems by doing this list. Let me know if you guys agree or not. Maguire was player of the month, to be fair. I love Harry Maguire. Evans should be in good. Can't put anyone excellent for us this season so far. Maybe Mainoo if his form continues. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Our season hasn't been good enough to be excellent. Our season probably has generally been average because we're 6th in the league, right? So I think that's fair. I think I am going to wrap up stream pretty much like straight away now. Just because been streaming for a long time today. 2 hours on this. I'm really losing my voice. And I'm back with I've got 2 more streams to come this week, plus a stream on Discord. So I think I'm going to leave it there. So thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Thank you to everyone who has liked, everyone who's voted in the polls, everyone who's given their thoughts, their opinions. I am going to leave this stream up as a stream, but I'm not going to turn it into a video. Tomorrow's stream at the same time, maybe a little bit earlier, is going to be players that we should keep, players we should build around, players that we should sell, etc. So tune in for tomorrow's stream. Before we go, we've got a gifted membership. We've got 5 gifted memberships from Nuruddin. Thank you so much for gifting the memberships once again. 5 of you who weren't members before are now members. And what is cool about that is I can see that some of you guys that have been given it are regulars on the channel. So that's great to see. Thank you very much, Nuruddin, for the gifted memberships as always. If you are a member, use the new emojis and also DM me on Discord and I'll add you to the exclusive content channel. Thank you so much, Nuruddin. That is super generous once again. Like I said, if you are a member, spam your emotes. Spam the emotes. Turn the chat green, guys. Turn the chat green. But yeah, apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the stream. Thank you to Nuruddin and Ali for the donations and the gifted memberships. Apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you